Hello everyone, on this video we'll talk about definite content. If you recall on the previous video we discussed about the world of creative content versus definite content. Well, this one will talk about specifically what makes the definite content world and how it's going to be different from the creative content world when we're going to be looking at it on the next video. So for this one we'll focus purely on a model, and that model will be the same representation for the creative content. So stay tuned. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, and we got more content coming for you. Definite content world, like I just explained, is for projects that are where you could define the requirements and are requirement driven. But in order to get a comparison side by side, it's best for us to understand the different elements that makes the definite content world. And then in the next section, we're going to take a look at the creative content world. And so you could compare the different elements side by side and have an idea of where are the different. A lot of you will recognize your own organization or what you have been done in one of these two worlds. And some of you might feel like, I'm in the wrong world. I should be in the other one. I'm not comfortable in this one. I prefer to be on the other one. So let's understand that. And from that point on, you will understand better the role of the executive producer in the creative content. So definite content, in order to understand that, we're going to show you a model, which is like kind of a pyramid that shows you different elements. Okay? In the center, basically we're describing this is the definite content environment. At the top, you will have the methodologies of preference there, which would be usually project management methodology. And there's plenty out there. There's also framework, like PMI's got some framework, but there's also methodology to do agile, to do gate process, waterfall, etc. Those would be the methodology that people would be using to manage their project within their own organization. The one side of the pillar, we're going to be looking at human capital. Usually in an organization that is really project management driven, they will have human resource, and they will be putting emphasis, if you have a little bit of focus on human capital. And typically the human capital is the area where you will try to standardize a little bit the level of education you need your staff to be. So try to avoid having over-educated for a certain job or under-educated. So try to standardize that also, so we don't have people from different levels of education, so they don't understand each other, so we could go faster and having less to educate there. Spend time less on giving them fundamental information. So education will be something that we'll be screening right off the bat when people receive a resume. They will be we're looking for minimum bachelor degree or master degree or technical degree. So they'll right away put a filter on education and make sure that you have a certain level of understanding of the key concept that the project will be required. The next piece is of part of human capital, you'll see, is the specialization. Specialization is pretty much we'll be looking at people that got specific understanding. So if you are a programmer, you know how to program Java and you have experience in Java. And then in the level of specialization, we might be looking at beginners, we'll be looking at advanced people or intermediary, depending on the complexity that we want to do. So we're trying to get the fundamental of education, then specialists, certain area. We might need a senior database people, and we might need a beginner programmer of HTML. So those are the kind of things that they'll be looking at. And finally, expertise, where you will need a certain level of expert. If you're developing a product or a building, you need to have something different than others, right? You need to differentiate your product and what you offer with something that you are an expert. We're an expert in green development. We're an expert in security. Well, whatever it is, and therefore you have expertise and special people that are dealing with this expert. So that would be like the human capital side. The other side of the pyramid is the organization side. One is the people, the other one is the organization. And there you'll be talking about the maturity model. And there's different maturity model that exists. There's the capability maturity model, there's the project management maturity model, there's like a different maturity model. But basically, it's a way of looking at the organization to find out, first of all, do they have good practice? Do they have the best practice? And try to bring in the best practice. You're going to hear a lot people talking at we're implementing best practice, we have the best practice in this field, etc. So it is a way of saying we can do that very well. We can execute this process very well, better than anybody else. Okay, and it's a constant search for best practice. In the organization, the other piece will be tool and technique. People will be putting a lot of money to try to provide tools that allow people to be more productive, but also more aligned to the goal, to align to the projects. A lot of the templates will be developed also to speed up times and to help people to get it quick at getting at the results. So they'll be organized in this way. And sometimes when you get into an organization like this, you have to spend time to learn these tools and technique on top of what you have to learn. But once you master them, it goes a lot faster and it helps the decision making in the organization. And lastly, process. People will be process driven. As soon as the process is broken, the whole thing stops. So there's some good and bad with process. When your process works, it works. You can produce stuff. But when your process don't work, then, it gets a little bit difficult. And somehow people don't understand what's going on, why I'm putting this in the machine and it doesn't give me the results. And then it's a big thing to look at process. Of course, people will try to improve their process. People will try to modify the process. It's a word that you hear in a lot of the organizations that are traditional. So this is the model that you'll see in a traditional environment. So if you have a model like this where you're working, I can tell you that, it's very difficult to work creative content project in an organization that is structured like that. You could work project management, you could deliver to a requirement, but creative content, forget it, you're going to hit the wall. So enough people that are frustrated in these organizations like that will be R&D people. R&D people, by default, they're working on creative content project. It's very difficult for them to work on requirement if they're looking for research, trying to find new ways of doing things. They cannot limit themselves by process and tools. They got to go beyond that. They got to go around and they got to be creative. And sometimes they have to have more ideas and ideas and ideas. So the whole change thing, control, it doesn't work for them. So I meet a lot of people when I introduce them the traditional world and then I introduce them the creative content world, they're raising their hand and say, please, could you come and talk to my boss because I'm working in R&D and it doesn't work, the definite content for me. Could we get the creative content? The answer to this is yes, you could get both in the same company, but you need senior executives that understand that you have both in the same company.